So today's video, we are going to be making a Premodel Raw style meal for Rush. And I'm doing this because a lot of people are very intimidated by preparing their own raw diet. So I thought that I would show you guys how easy it really is. There is a little bit of math involved, so you're definitely going to need a calculator. To make it easy to follow along, I'm going to be doing my calculations on the side so that you guys can follow along. I went ahead and did all my calculations here because I'm recording on my phone, so I don't actually own a calculator. All right, so step one is we need to figure out how much Rush is going to eat every day. To do this, we're going to need to know his current weight. You don't have to know your pet's weight exactly, you just kind of want a ballpark range. So Rush weighs 70 pounds, and I feed him 1.5%. So this is how I came up with 1.5. 2% is kind of like the middle ground baseline. It's what they suggest for just like average dogs, but every dog is different. Some have fast metabolism, some are working dogs, some might be overweight or inactive. So I found that 1.5% works best for Rush. It's just enough for him to maintain his weight. He doesn't lose too much, he doesn't gain too much, he just hovers around the 70-pound mark. But you won't know this until you try. So you can start at 2% if your dog is just pretty much an average dog. If they're a working dog or a pregnant dog, you would need to go higher, like 2.5, 3, 3.5%. Or if your dog is the opposite and is either overweight or not very active or just tends to have a slow metabolism, you would go less with like 1%. I wouldn't really go too much below 1%. So let's do the math. 70 pounds, Rush's current weight, times 1.5%, and that'll give us about a pound a day. So he eats 1 pound per day, and that is equivalent to 16 ounces. And I'm gonna be doing the calculations in ounces because it's a lot easier to figure out what to weigh. So it helps to have a scale that has both pounds and ounces, but follow along and I'll leave the units up so you can see it's gonna weigh out in ounces. So Premodel Raw has a guideline and they suggest 80% boneless muscle meat, 10% bone, and 10% organ. So in order to calculate that, we're just gonna take 16 ounces, which is his total weight to feed for the day. We're gonna take 80% of 16 ounces, so that's 12.8 ounces of boneless. 10% of 16 ounces is 1.6 ounces of bone, and 10% organ is 1.6 ounces of organ. So that's his guideline. That's what every meal should strive to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. It is a guideline, but try to come close. So let's start with the organ meat. Of the 10% organ, it has to be 5% liver and 5% other secreting kidney. So basically the 1.6 ounces of organ that Rush should be eating every day has to be half liver and half other organ. Other organs, they say it has to be secreting organ, which is basically kidney, spleen, pancreas, brain, ovaries, testicle. Those all count as secreting organs. Heart, believe it or not, do not count as an organ. Lungs don't count as organ. Gizzards don't count as organ. So try to stay in that category. Now, the second part, after I decide how many organs to put in, I like to do the bone next. So the first thing that you need to think about is what bone am I going to feed? So every bone is different. Think about a chicken, right? If you have a chicken drumstick, there's a decent amount of meat and a little bit of bone. If you have a chicken wing, it's a little more bone than a chicken leg or a chicken drumstick. So it's around like half meat, half bone. And you'll see the percentages here. And these are just rough guidelines for the percent of bone in a chicken part. So the reason I do this first is because, one, I need to base it on what I have, or I'll look in like supermarket flyers and see what's on sale. So right now, ShopRite has bone-in chicken parts like drumsticks and wings for like 99 cents a pound. So I plan on catching that sale. So for Rush's meal plan that I'm working on right now, I am going to pick chicken legs, and they're about 27% bone. So now we need to figure out, okay, how much chicken legs, or how many chicken legs do I need to feed to meet Rush's requirement of 1.6 ounces of bone? And I've come up with a formula for that, and you'll see it up on the side. It's ounces of bone. To figure out the ounces of bone, it's the ounces of bone needed. So he needs 1.6 ounces of bone per day over the bone percentage. So this is 27%, which I got off that chart that I showed you earlier. So when you do that math, 1.6 divided by 0.27, you get 5.9, which is about 6 ounces. So Rush's daily meal is going to consist of 6 ounces of chicken legs, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, do not go and start slicing up with chicken legs so you can hit 6 ounces on the dot. Sometimes it'll be like 5, sometimes it'll be 6.5 or 7. You get it as close as possible, and don't stress out about being perfect on the weights. So I know that Rush's meal is gonna have 6 ounces of chicken legs. It's gonna have half liver, so 0.8 ounces of liver. I have beef kidney on hand, so it's gonna be 0.8 ounces as the other organ. And basically the remainder is going to be boneless. So if he eats 16 ounces a day, minus the 1.6 ounces in organ, minus the 6 ounces in drumsticks, then I need to add about 8.5 ounces of boneless. Now, this is different for everybody. Some people make meals day by day by day. Some people feed twice, some people feed once. My preference is to make meals for a week at a time, at least. So I do my shopping on the weekend, I prep everything, I stick it in the freezer, and that way I have it, because weeknights are chaos here, and I usually get home pretty late. So they eat once a day, and I'll just defrost it in the fridge, and I'll feed it when I get home. And if you are a 2-a-day feeder, then basically you would just feed a little bit of that portion in the morning or whenever, and then feed a little bit of that portion at night. So since I prep a week at a time, what I do is I multiply all these values by 7, figure 7 days in a week. So on a weekend, I will go and buy this list, and I'll portion everything out. So my list looks a little like this when you multiply everything by 7. So about 2.5 pounds of drumsticks, 3.5 pounds of boneless meat, and 5.6 ounces of liver and 5.6 ounces of kidney. And what I do is I basically just make 7 piles along the counter, and I just divvy it all up. So the bag of drumsticks, 5.6 ounces is usually like 2-ish drumsticks if they're fairly small, or it could be like 1 fat drumstick. I just get as close as I can. And the reason that I do it this way is because I don't feel like weighing out every single day. And because with Prey Model Raw, the secret, or like the tip, is it's balance over time. So by doing the math for the week, I know that Rush's week is balanced. And even though he might not get exactly 0.8 ounces of liver on a Monday, I know that over the course of the week, he's getting enough liver, because I counted out his daily requirement, I shopped for it, I bought the 5.6 ounces, and I divvied it up over 7 days. If one's a little more than the last, not a huge deal. You're not going to screw it up so long as it's there to begin with. There are some days that if I feed bone and organ and he gets a lot of it, then I won't feed much boneless, and I'll go and I'll follow the next meal with boneless. So it's very, very flexible, and I think that's why people are so intimidated by this diet. They think it's a lot of math and a lot of work, and you're going to screw it up, and you don't want your dog to be lacking anything. But if you follow the guidelines and you just say to yourself, balance over time, then you really, really can't go wrong.
I hope this video helped everyone understand how to prepare a balanced raw meal. Just keep in mind that every dog is different, so your percentages may go up or down. It can be a little overwhelming at first, but we're here to help you. So if you have any questions or need any clarification, leave it in the comments below. Stay tuned for our next video.